Good morning, everyone. We're about to get started. I think a couple of people are still joining. Okay, let's get started. We've got so much to cover today. I've got far too many slides just for an hour. So if I do have to go at a really fast pace, I do apologize, but everything will be available on the YouTube channel afterwards. If you haven't come across me before, my name's Scott Johnstone. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at BPCA. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Natalie has stolen all the good kit. So I'm using my little headphones and tiny little microphone. So I hope you can hear me okay. What we're going to do is we're going to do a very brief overview of social media and blogging for pest controllers. If you have any questions, there's a little Q&A box at the bottom where you can pop up questions that I'll deal with at the end. And yeah, let's get started. So the agenda for today, we're going to have a quick look at finding your voice, because before you can do any social media or any blogging, you need to understand what your voice is and have something to say. After that, we'll have a look at social media. We'll have a quick look at some of the platforms that are commonly used for social media. Then we'll have a look at some very simple social media strategy. And then we'll go on to have a look at how we can plan for social media as well. Then we will move towards the blogging section, which is probably my favorite section. I love blogging and writing for the internet. So we'll have a look at how we can get some ideas for our blogs, how we can structure our blogs so people actually want to read them, and how we can plan out our blog articles. And then at the end, if we've got enough time, I've got 9 tricks and tips that are perfect for people looking to do some social media and blogs for themselves, and some common pitfalls not to fall into. And then we'll go through any questions and answers that you have towards the end. So let's get started. What is social media and what is a blog? I'm sure everybody here has either read a blog or has a social media account of some description. I think it's important to have a look at the context that we're talking about here. Whether you like it or not, nowadays, human beings are all androids. We're part robots, all connected to our devices with a smart device in our pocket that connects us to the internet, and then the internet that connects us all to each other. So I think it's important to think of, when we're talking about digital communications like this, we're actually talking about human communications. And often it can feel a little bit foreign to us, the idea of talking to someone over the internet or publishing things to the internet. But it is part and parcel of human beings talk to each other, and how a lot of business is done nowadays. So when we're talking about social media, we're really talking about anything that connects person A and person B, whether that's for networking or sharing things. We'll be talking mainly about kind of the more traditional social mediums like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. But it's important to remember things like WhatsApp and Messenger for Facebook. They're all social mediums as well. And then we have a look at blogs. A blog is any place that you can, any space on the internet that you can call your own, where you can publish your own ideas and thoughts and articles. And normally when we're talking about business blogs, we're talking about a blog that is on your website. So when we talk about social media for business, we call that social media marketing. And when we talk about writing blogs, that's part of content marketing, or making stuff for your potential customers, and that falls under the content marketing umbrella. But there's a lot of crossover between the two mediums, hence why I've bundled them both up together. Before we get into things in too much detail, I think it's probably important to acknowledge that the majority of people listening in today are probably not marketers or paid full-time to be the marketeers for their company. Instead, you're far more likely to be a technician or support office staff. So who should be doing the social media and blogging for your organization? Should it be the office staff? Should it be your technicians? Or should you be thinking about outsourcing this to another company? I think there's some real great benefits for when, particularly small businesses, put social media and blogging in the hands of their frontline staff. And you get a far more interesting insight into what that company's about and what they do when you are a technician on the front line. And my favorite social media pages of members are the ones where they've given the responsibility for social media and blogging over to those expert technicians on the front line, because ultimately they have the greatest insight. So regardless of who you are or where you are within your organization, or even if it's just you, even if you are just a one man band, a sole trader, I would encourage you to give social media and blogging over to whoever's doing the frontline stuff in your organization. So let's talk about finding your voice. So there's a couple of things that we need to do before we start doing any tweeting or any blogs for our organization. We have to have them clear in our head so we can find our voice and know how we talk to our people. So your organization should know what your purpose is. Why do you exist as an organization? It's not enough to be there to make money. You've got to have a purpose. And that purpose for you guys will probably prove pretty similar. You're there to protect people from public health pests. You're there to make people's lives better, less distress for people with pest problems in the UK. And so your purpose should be quite clear, but having that written down and understanding that and weaving that into your social media messages is going to be important. Next, you've got to have a think about your values, and value statements can sound a bit like a floaty corporate thing, but knowing what you guys care about is really important in terms of making sure that you have a strong voice. Do you care about bee conservation? Do you care about the mental health of your customers? Do you care about fantastic customer service and getting it right the first time? If those are your values and everybody in your organization knows those values and knows how to live by them, again, that contributes to your voice, and that will come across in your social media messages and your blogs. You've also got your tone of voice, and that's how you want to come across. So I always think that for a service industry, you kind of want to hit that helpful friend status. You want to be the people that your customers turn to when they are distressed or concerned. I know at BPCA, we want to be members' helpful friend. And that comes across in all of our comms, or should come across in all of our comms. And then finally, knowing your audience. Who are you speaking to? What do they like? Where do they hang out on the internet? What do they do? What do they need from you? By you understanding who you're trying to talk to, you'll better be able to craft messages for your blogs and social media content. A lot of people fall into the trap of not wanting to talk like their audience, or wanting to fall into this kind of corporate speak instead of actually rolling up your sleeves and talking to your audience how they like to be talked to. So somewhere overlapping in those four circles, if you know your purpose, your values, your tone, and your audience, you'll have a really strong voice. And if you don't know what any of those four things are, I would suggest getting together as a staff team and really having a think about what those four things are for you guys. So remember, you might have lots of different purposes, you might have loads of values, you might have a few different audiences even, and you can change up your tone as required, but your voice will always be the same. So make sure that once you know what your voice is, you're applying it to all your social media messages and all the marketing activity you're doing. If I was to put BPCA's voice down into a couple of succinct sentences, I'd say our voice is professional but not stodgy, helpful but not overbearing, an expert without being bossy, fun without being silly, straightforward but never blunt, confident but not cocky. And that's what we're trying to aim for. And if you can get to a point where you can write down what your voice is in a succinct fashion, it will, and then convey that to anybody that makes anything for your organization, you're going to be onto a good start. Let's move on to looking more specifically at social media to start with. And one of the things you'll potentially be thinking is, why would you bother with social media? And it's a good question. It's an important starting place as well. So social media does give you the opportunity to sell things and make people do things that you want them to do. But that can't be the primary reason why you do social media. It's never going to bring in lots and lots of leads for your organization. However, it can help with things like your authority and telling your story, all of which help sell things to your customers and create a relationship with your potential customers and your existing customers. You also create some sort of engagement between your current customers or your potential customers and you, which is fantastic. You get two-way feedback that way. You can see people becoming advocates for your service. I would say nowadays as well, why bother with social media? Potentially because you have to. There are risks if you don't do social media. If your competitors have a very high profile on social media, then you need to be able to compete with that. And potentially, people are using social media a lot more than they ever have done before. So this is from a survey in 2019, and you can see that there's been a steady growth with how much time everybody in the UK has been spending on social media. So about 2 hours, 16 minutes a day is spent on social media on average by adults in the UK. And that takes everybody from the age of 16 to 64 into account as well. So this isn't just looking at your new kind of millennial customers. This is across the board. More and more people are spending time on social media. So can you afford to not have your business there? Let's have a look at choosing the appropriate platforms for your business, because there are a lot of different social media platforms out there, and finding one that works for your audience specifically is going to be an integral part of your social media strategy. You need to find a platform that gives you space for your voice to be heard properly, and it needs to be effective for your time as well. There's only so much you can do on social media, because if you commit to too many platforms, you will soon find that they are all very time consuming. BPCA commits to 3 social media platforms. So we have Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and you can see why. So these are some stats from a company called Social Sprout. And they talk about the different types of users that are available on each of the platforms. So if you can see on Facebook, 74% of females, 62% of males are on Facebook. And in terms of coverage, they also have the biggest share of rural users, which is obviously very important when we're running a pest control association. But again, you look at something like Twitter over here, which is a microblogging platform, and you can see that there are more professional users on there. You can have bigger conversations on there and connect to more people, because it's a very open social network. And actually, when people from the press want to find information, Twitter is one of the most used social mediums for that. So again, social media, Twitter brings us into a bigger conversation. LinkedIn, very much professional users. It is the place for business social media. So again, it's another social media platform that's definitely worth considering. But there are other social media platforms out there which can be used for your business. I'm not sure if I've seen too many social media pages for pest controllers on Pinterest, Instagram, or Snapchat. But I'm sure they do exist. I've seen some very successful Instagram pages for pest control companies. Instagram is a photo-first sharing website, which is owned by Facebook, and you can cross-promote between Facebook and Instagram, which means it has some very powerful paid tools, and is definitely one of the biggest growing social media platforms. Pinterest is very much about collecting boards of interesting things, so DIY projects work really well on there. You also have lots of recipes on there. People save stuff for later. It's almost like virtual scrapbooking. I don't think I've seen any pest control social media boards on Pinterest. unfortunately, but potentially somebody could make that work. And then finally, Snapchat, a really growing medium again. It's about giving like short, sharp insights into your organization, and it feels very live. I think Boris Johnson has a Snapchat page now, and will show an insight into what he's doing day on as Prime Minister in the UK through his Snapchat page. So it's a very personal social medium. But again, all of these platforms potentially could be ways of connecting to your customers, and choosing the right one is going to be important. Let's talk about social media strategy very briefly. So I have a very simple strategy that I think works very well, and we call it the rule of thirds. So out of every 3 posts that you share on your social media page, 1 should be a self-promotion tweet, 1 should be an interaction with somebody else, and 1 should be sharing something with your community. I'll go into those into a tiny bit more detail. So self-promotion posts are when you're directly trying to promote something that you're doing, or your goods or services. You can see on the right there, I've got a post from the BPCA page about Pest. We want you to sign up for Pest. We want you to get registered. This is how you do it. On the other side, you've got Innocent Drinks. They have a really interesting social media page, and they're promoting their juice drink with a little bit of drama from Colleen versus Rebecca Vardy. So your self-promotion posts don't have to be direct sales. They shouldn't feel silly. This isn't a space for you just to plonk your adverts. This is where you can promote yourself in a creative way, and using humor or using secrets or trying to create some interest in your product or service is definitely better than just screaming £65 WASP jobs, contact now. You've got to provide some sort of value even in your promotion posts. Then we talked about community posts. So community posts are when you're talking about things that are relevant to your audience and not directly promoting yourself. So BPCA does this a lot. So there's an article there that we shared about rats with little cars. And then there's another example here from the National Residential Landlords Association talking about a news article where a law has changed because of a court proceeding. And that's obviously very relevant to their audience, which presumably is going to be residential landlords. So by creating these community posts, by sharing things with your community that aren't directly promotional, you create value for and a good reason to follow you. It also makes you out to be a bit of a thought leader as well. If you've got your fingers on the pulse of what's happening in your organization or your sector, people will trust you more. So interaction posts are exactly what it says on the tin. It's just talking to your audience. So when they comment or when they post to you, you write back. There's a great example here where somebody has been tossing up whether they want to buy a Jeep or a Ford. Jeep's Twitter page has come in and commented and said they've made the right decision. On the other side, you can see we shared a YouTube video about ant colonies. So that would be a community post, but underneath you can see that somebody has commented on it, talking about that they keep a fire ant colony. And that started a conversation. So we responded to that. Somebody else responded to that. We asked questions. They gave the answers. And all these things do is make you feel more connected to your audience. So the audience member that you're talking to feels better valued. And the people that are just watching are reminded that you are a human being and your organization is led by human beings, which is all what social media is about, trying to give your organization some humanity. So where do you get your ideas for your posts from? Well, for your self-promotion posts, you just need to ask your team. You need to look to what you're doing day to day. if you've won an award, or if you've joined BPCA or a different membership organisation, or you've just applied for your ISO. Those are things that you can share with your self-promotion posts. So talk to your team, talk to your customers, find the good feedback, and share those sort of things. We use a Google Sheet just to collect things from all the staff team that for our self-promotion posts in the week. For community posts, these are the most fun ones to find. We set up Google Alerts, which is a free service from Google, where you get keyword notifications to your inbox sent by email. So you can see when people are talking about rats or pest control or pesticides. And then you can find things that way. So you just have to sort of like delve through the new stuff from the week and share those things. Twitter does a nice roundup email towards the end of the week. So what other links people in your community are sharing, and hanging around in special interest groups and forums, or reading your trade magazines and things like that. We'll definitely find these community posts. Just being interested is definitely the way to do it. If you're interested in your profession, then you'll soon find interesting things to share with your community. Interactions. Spend 15 minutes after your lunch break just talking to your, just having a look and seeing what comments you've got, see what's in your timeline, have a look at some keywords, follow a few hashtags, and have a poke around. Use the platforms as they're intended, and you'll soon be able to find things to comment on. And if your self-promotion posts and your community posts are good enough, you'll be getting comments anyway. Okay, let's have a look at planning and scheduling really quickly. So we use a shared Google Sheet for planning our social media posts for the week. So we'll find all our links, the things that we want to promote, our community posts. We'll place them all in one place for different themes every week. You can see a section of our planning sheet for a couple of weeks ago, talking about all the things that are going on that week. So we use Google Sheets. You could use an Excel document, or you could use a scheduler. Normally has some sort of way of creating your planning sheet. And then when it comes to scheduling your social media posts is super important, because otherwise you could spend an awful lot of time trying to live tweet, live Facebook post, etc. throughout the week. We spend a couple of hours on a Monday using a scheduling tool called Hootsuite. There's loads of other scheduling tools there that you can have a look at, and they all have their own pros and cons. Hootsuite is free up to X amount of posts a week. So it's definitely worth having a look at. You just log in with all your various accounts, and you can cross-post and schedule things for the week. It'll even suggest the best times of day to tweet and send Facebook posts, so you get the maximum engagement. So I would recommend having a look at some sort of scheduling tool. Before we finish on social media, I just wanted to do a couple of quick do's and don'ts. Do be professional and show your professionalism off at every opportunity. People don't necessarily think a great deal of our sector sometimes. So by showing our professionalism, we can help change hearts and minds for the whole sector, never mind just your organisation. Do tweet about your memberships and causes that are close to your heart. If you are supporting Bumblebee Awareness Week, then share that. If you are collecting for prostate cancer, share that. It's important to flesh out your business and make it look like it's run by actual human beings, because people buy from people at the end of the day. Show what you're doing. So on the front line, take some photos of the things that you're doing. Because people are interested. People wouldn't be following you if they didn't want to know what you were doing day in, day out. Don't make your social media attached from the day job, detached from your day job. Try and bring it all into one sphere of, this is what we do, this is our approach, these are our values, and this is how we'll look after you. And then don't be afraid to sell yourself on social media as well. talk about when you've done good things. Talk about when you've had a really successful job or some great feedback. Some big social media don'ts, I see these quite regularly. Don't post dead things on Facebook or Twitter. It's not what your customers want to see. They don't want to see you kill pests. They want to get rid of their pest problems. So by showing a lineup of 30 dead moles on a fence, you're not doing anything to encourage other customers. Show the benefits of your service rather than the end results. Don't forget to spell check. I'm sure I've caught a couple of spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes as I've been going through my presentation, but nothing says unprofessional than a badly spelt tweet. So if you're not confident with your spelling or grammar, ask a friend to have a look over it. It's really hard to spot your own spelling mistakes anyway. So having two people to go through the posts is super useful. Don't mix your professional and personal pages. I can see it if you like a political tweet or a picture of a model that you quite like the look of. Keep your social media accounts very separate because you don't know what you're showing off to your customers. They can see who you follow. They can see what you like. They can see what you've commented on. Just keep them separate. Keep them professional. Avoid controversial topics that have nothing to do with your organization. And then lastly, don't overthink your social media posts. You'd never post anything if you overthink it. So, try things out. If they work, do more of it. If they don't work, stop doing it. Let's fly over to blogging, the wonderful world of blogging. I love writing for the internet. I think it's fantastic that everybody with a laptop can be a writer and share their thoughts with the world. So why bother with blogging for your business? Well, it helps drive traffic through to your website. So search engines love blogs. So when Google crawls your website, if you've got a nice juicy blog on there, it's finding those keywords and it's deciding where you sit in those Google pages. Plus, if you're writing the right blog articles, people will be searching for the terms within and the answers within your blog. Obviously, that increased traffic to your website could be turned into leads. It also reassures potential customers or customers that are on the fence that you know what you're talking about. If you are a technician, writing a blog is a fantastic way of doing some CPD. The research that you put into your blog articles can all be converted into CPD points for BPCA registered. So make sure that you are recording those on your account. And a good blog article can even be part of your support package. So if you're getting the same questions from your customers again and again and again, why type out that response 100 times? Just send them a link to your website so they can read it through themselves in their own time. Blogging isn't going to bring you thousands of new leads in, but it is going to make the leads that you do get higher quality and potentially convert more leads into actual sales. I like this little funnel here: attention, interest, desire, action. Almost all digital marketing is based on this idea. We grab their attention, we spark their interest, we create some desire for our product or service, and then we give them something to do at the end, whether that's contact us for a quote or give us a call. And that's the basics for what a blog article is in its sense. You need to capture their attention, show a little bit of, garner some of their interest, create that desire, and then get them to actually do something with that desire. Let's have a look at some blog stats very quickly. 329 million people view blogs every year. So there's a huge growth area there, as well as more and more people turn to user-generated content, as traditional news sources don't seem to cover their thoughts anymore. 60% of businesses will have some sort of company blog. But unfortunately, of those 60% of businesses, 65% of them haven't updated their blog in a year or more. Blogs are only useful if you're updating them fairly regularly. Once a month is regular enough. But if you're going to start a blog, you need to commit to it, because it's wasted time if you're not actually updating it regularly. So what should you blog about? It's a good question. I think the best place to start with your first 10 blog articles is to look at the questions you get from your customers or potential customers most often and answer those. If they're saying, what can I do to get rid of a wasp nest in my garden, create a blog post based on that. Or how do you go about getting mice out of a commercial kitchen? Write an article about that, and then we can assume that other people are going to be interested in that subject area too, and they will stumble across it on the internet. Plus, even if you don't get any leads that way, you'll still have an article to send out to those customers when they ask you again, potentially saving you some time. If you're doing any niche or very specialist jobs, write a blog article about it. If you're doing a really bespoke bird proofing job for a local church, take some photos, talk about how the job was difficult, talk about how you overcame those problems, and then somebody will stumble across that blog when they have a similar issue in the future if you write a good enough blog article. Anything that makes you stand out, any news updates, any awards are all fantastic blog article topics. Something that reassures your customers or provides them with something helpful. Like we said before, being a helpful friend is an incredibly useful tool for a business to have, and creating that persona around you is only going to be good for your business. There's also a great website there called answerthepublic.com. You type in a word like pest control, press search, and it tells you all the questions that people have asked on Google and other search engines on the internet. And from those questions, you can then write blog posts to answer those questions. So it's a lovely way to start. I would say when you're just starting out with a blog, it's probably better to try and give yourself an attainable target, like 12 blog articles in a year, 1 a month. It's far better to have 12 really awesome blog articles than 52 not so great articles. So don't overstretch when you're starting out here, and just pick 10, 12 blog titles that you really think that you can get your teeth into. Just some things to keep in mind about blogging. People read things on the internet very differently to how they read things in print. So when people read online, they tend to scan things rather than read them. So they're looking for the headings, the bullet points, they're looking for the information that they need, and they'll soon bounce off a page if there isn't the content on there that they think they need. So put your useful stuff towards the top of the blog to make sure that you're capturing people's attention. It's also harder to read off a computer screen or a phone screen than it is in print. So that means shorter sentences, lots of space between paragraphs and very short paragraphs, and easy to read words. You want to make it as easy as possible for people to read your content. People want to feel as if they're doing something actively when they're online. So it's useful if you've got links for them to click or downloads for them to download. Anything that makes them feel that they're part of the experience can be super useful in making your blog feel active. Also remember that there are literally millions of blog posts on the internet, and you'll be competing against a lot of them. You're constantly competing for people's attention, and people are choice rich and time poor nowadays. So having short, sharp, useful, helpful content that isn't hidden behind paywalls or isn't stuffed towards the bottom of the page or isn't lots of clicks away is super important to having a decent blog. So you can see this picture here on the right. So this is called the F view, and it's basically what people did is they looked at people's eyes and where they're looking on web pages, and you'll see it creates this kind of F shape. So most people will read the top couple of lines in the title, will scan the kind of like middle section a little bit for the information that they want, and then their interest will peak towards the end of the blog. So we've got to make sure that our content, the stuff that keeps them reading, is towards the top of that page. And that's not just blogs, that's any online web page. So just keep that F shape in mind when you're looking at making your blogs fantastic. Okay, let's have a look at a very simple process for getting your blog off the ground. So we've had our idea, we found our title for our blog, and now we're going to think of some keywords that we want to target for our blogs. So keywords are just things that people are likely to search for. So we're going to write a blog article about things that buzz in your garden and telling the difference between wasps and bees. So I'm putting yellow, black, stripy things as my keywords, identification, wasps, bees, etc. Plan out some subheadings or sub-questions. So decide what the different sections of your blog are going to look like. So biology of bees, biology of wasps, telling the difference between bees and wasps. They're all good subheadings. And they, again, subheadings really help with how Google indexes your pages. Decide what you want people to do after they finished reading, because there's no point in doing a blog article if it doesn't do anything for you. So do you want them to fill out a contact form at the bottom? Do you want them to download a fact sheet? Decide what you want them to actually do. Do some decent research. The research is the better your research is, the better your blog's going to be. Even if you know a lot about a subject, it's worth having a look and seeing what everyone else is doing. Having said that, do not copy and paste big bits of research from other people's pages into your own blog articles. One, it's against the law. And two, Google will only rank the same information once. So if you're copying from an older page, they're always going to rank for it before you do. So don't copy and paste from other people's work, even if you have permission for it. It won't do you any good. Find some good images. There's some really good free images out there, Creative Commons images. And you can also buy some fairly cheap royalty-free images. When you're actually drafting, it's worth just sitting down, giving yourself an hour and keep writing. It's never going to be perfect on your first draft. Then get somebody to read it and do a good proof of it, do some sub-editing, make sure that it's the best looking piece of work that you can produce. Ultimately, your blog should be accessible to everyone. So give it to your mum to read through and say, right, do you understand this? Do you know what I'm trying to achieve here? And if they give you a thumbs up, I'm sure you're on the right sort of track. And then make sure that you're also optimizing your content for online. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then you can press your publish button and be sharing it on social media and sending it out to your customers. People quite often ask how long a blog article should be, and really how long is a piece of string. If you want people to read it, if you want a lot of people to read it, then 500 to 1,000 words and keep it short. If you want Google to rank for it, keep it long. If there's another article out there that you're trying to beat, then make sure that yours is longer and better. But ultimately, it will really depend on the sort of content that you're making. Search engine results pages are what appear in Google when you search for a key term. They are made up of a H1 tag or a header tag and a meta description. So we need to optimize these to make sure that they work best for our individual page and make people actually want to click them. So you should have this in the back end of your website somewhere. It'll give you a header and a meta description. Just make sure you've got some keywords in there. Make sure it fits in the box. And make sure that people actually want to click on it when they read it. There's a good website there, SEOmofo.com, which gives you a preview of what it will look like on Google, so you know if it's the right length or not. Blogs are more than just a couple of thousand written words. Blogs can be a collection of images, videos, links, and downloadable PDFs. You can see here on our WASP blog page that we've got a nice video at the start. There's a downloadable guide a bit further down. We've got lots of images on there as well. So make sure you spend the time to make your content looking great as well. Because, ultimately you're trying to get a human being to read this. If it doesn't look very attractive, or if it's just a block of text, how many people are really going to actually want to read your article? Okay, I'm going to fly through some tips and tricks for social media and blogging. I can see that we're running out of time a little bit, so I'll try and keep it brief. Tip number 1 for social media specifically, keep it short. Even though on Facebook you can have 63,000 characters for a post, studies show that 40 characters is the ideal post length and people are more likely to click the button on it. LinkedIn, 25 words. Twitter, you only need to use half the character count to get the ideal post length. People are time poor and you're competing against a lot of messages that are there in that timeline. So make sure that you stand out. I've said it a couple of times already, but you really need to be as human as possible when it comes to social media. I love this National Rail post here. Evening all, Luke here, signing in for the first of 9 night shifts. Feel free to tweet us if you need any help. And then a little gif of I hate my life. No, it's not the most professional thing in the world, but it does show that there's a human being behind the keyboard there. And ultimately, that's what people want. They want human connections from these digital mediums. So talk in the way your customers do. Don't be too corporate. Be yourselves and see how that comes across online. You can be professional without being stodgy. Every communications strategy I've ever written has embraced some sort of element of humor and risk. It's super important that you know where the lines are and you feel that you can play with those lines a little bit when you're on social media. Again, it gives people a reason to follow you. You can see on this PPC Live post, my colleague Kat had posted that if you come along to PPC Live, I will do my impression of a biscuit beetle for people. And these sort of things just help flesh out your business and make you feel more approachable. And ultimately, people will unfollow you if you're just sharing corporate messages all day, every day. Use curiosity to get clicks. BuzzFeed kind of cornered the market on these clickbait titles. Only a horror movie expert will be able to get 8 out of 11 on this tagline quiz. They provoke some sort of interest. They provoke this idea of curiosity. Who doesn't want to see Tesla's crash test dummy and what happens when they put a brand new car through the crash test procedure? Disney there sharing a 1 minute 24 video of almost nothing until the last few seconds when a character pops up and dances around, and that's got 133,000 views. You can use curiosity to get people clicking on your links. Use visuals on your posts and in your blogs. Honestly, I would say 100% of your social media posts should have images with them, and good quality images too. All your blog articles should have an image with them as well. Post pictures of yourself and people that look like you. Post pictures of people that look like your audience as well. Try and be inspirational when you can. Use memes if it's appropriate and you know how to use them properly. Or do something that just captures the eye. I love this picture of a flea. I think it's amazing. I think it really does make you want to read that article and see potentially more of that flea. Here's some more examples of that. So there's Nike there who have this "Just Do It" hashtag. So they share inspirational posts of people in sports. Primark there advertising their Modest collection, and they use pictures of models. that their audience will be able to empathize with and relate to. Great British Bake Off there, they always use GIFs of their bakers smiling and doing things, and people like that familiarity. And then Wendy's there, you can see that they're not only taking the mick out of their competitors, but they're also using a meme from Avengers Endgame. They know their audience, and that post there has got 250,000 likes. So don't be afraid to embrace a little bit of humor and risk, and make sure that you're always using a bit of some visuals in your posts. Canva.com is a fantastic website where if you don't want to pay a graphic designer or learn how to use Photoshop, you can drag and drop images in, add text, and they're all optimized for social media. So give that a go. Number 6, we've talked about scannability before in this F-shaped pattern, but short sentences, and you can see in another extract of this WASP blog, short sentences, pull quotes, lots of headings, numbered lists, photographs to break it up, just make the article so much easier to read than a big block of text. If you go onto the BBC News site, every single sentence they do is on a separate line, so it's as easy as possible to read. So, your sentences can be a couple of words long, and your paragraphs can be literally one sentence long. It all helps with that scannability and readability of the article. Write in plain English. Marketees is a big no-no. This two lots of text here, one written in Marketees and one written in plain English. In today's volatile business environment, it is paramount to predict demand with precision in order to maximize success in a competitive marketplace. What does that mean? Well, nobody really knows, and it's not very easy to read, and it's a very boring sentence. Make everything as short and simple and in plain English sentences as much as you can. Don't try and catch people out. Don't try and sound like a Nobel Prize winning writer. What you're trying to do is make your meaning heard in the fewest amount of words possible. There's a couple of good websites there, Grammarly and Hemingway app. They both have free elements of them, and they check your writing and readability scores and try and make it as simple as possible. So I would suggest throwing some of your blog content and even your web page content on there just to see what it says and see what feedback you get. Number 8, think mobile. Nobody is going to be reading your blog post or your social media post on their desktop computer anymore. The vast majority of these things happen on mobile phones. So that means that you want your text not to be too small. You want your pictures to be easy to read with no tiny text on it. And you want to use as fewer words as possible. So make sure it looks good on a phone. Things are only going one way, and the internet is going to be on mobile rather than fixed desktop and laptop computers going forward. And final tip is just on proofreading. And, I've had proofreading come back to bite me a couple of times. It doesn't matter how often you check something, there's still going to be some errors in it. Try and get somebody else to check it for you that you trust. Use one of these online proofreading tools. Check it again. And when you make a mistake on a blog, you can easily amend it. On social media, you can amend it as well, but sometimes the damage is already done. So just keep proofreading at the front of your mind. And if you are a slightly bigger company, I would suggest that you have some formal proofreading procedures as well before you publish blogs. I think that's it. I think I've raced through those slides at about one slide every 30 seconds. So if you do have any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A now. I've got a couple of questions pop up, so I'll try and deal with them now. Love the rat. Thank you for that, Chris Johnson. How many words on average should a blog be? So we talked about this a little bit further on, how long is a piece of string? The more you want it to rank on Google, the longer it should be. I'm always in favor of quite long posts for technical content in particular. So some of our A to Z of pests are 3,000, 4,000 words long. But ultimately, as long as they need to be, if you're doing a little news update on your account, I suspect that 600 words is probably plenty. The average article in PPC magazine is about 1,300 words long. So those don't need to be huge essays. It'll depend on your subject matter. And actually, when you start getting feedback on your blog articles, you'll see which ones do best with your audience. Can I see your biscuit beetle impression? No, Alex, sorry, it was a lie just to try and get people to sign up to PPC Live. You shouldn't lie in your social media posts unless it's very obviously a lie. How long should a small company spend on blogging per month? It's difficult. You do need to give dedicated time to blogging. So when I started off blogging for businesses, they gave me very little time at all, and that affected the research time and the quality of the piece in the end. So if you can dedicate a couple of hours a week into doing some blogging for your site, that's probably enough to get you started. So if you're trying to do one post a month, I think 2 hours a week is plenty. Another 2 hours for your social media, if that's what you want to do. If you're employing professional writers, then they should be able to do it in less time. But ultimately, the time that you put in will dictate the quality of the end result. Is there any tool you can use to post your social media out to all your social media outlets at once? Yes, there is. So Hootsuite, what we use is you can publish to multiple accounts the same post at the same time. There are some subtle differences between posts on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. So it might not necessarily be a case of just copying and pasting them over. You might want to make slight amends for each medium. But yes, those social media tools will do it and will save you some time as well. And there are posts that we post which are just identical across a couple of different profiles. How often should you post a new blog? Google likes it when your website is updated every week, but that is not realistic for most people. It's far better to have 12 really good blog posts in a year than 52 rubbish ones. Don't let a blog go quiet. If you post in June and February and then have a 4-month gap, that's no good for your website. You need to be fairly consistent with it. It just helps with your search engine optimization. If you do build a fan base or an audience base for your blog, they are going to expect content in some sort of regular pattern. Good idea to replicate an article on LinkedIn and on your blog or not. So we tried this. I'd heard that it was a really good way of extending the reach of a blog post to copy and paste it in as a LinkedIn article. We tried it a couple of times, and the best way that we found to do it was to put half the blog article on your LinkedIn page and then read more button that directly linked to the rest of the blog article on your website. So that way you get your website traffic and you build up your LinkedIn following as well. So that was a nice way of going about it. So yeah, potentially give it a go, see what works for you. How many times should businesses post per day on LinkedIn? Is there any issues to posting multiple times a day? So LinkedIn specifically, I'd say yes. There's only so many times that you can post on LinkedIn a day before LinkedIn just stops showing your posts. And actually for most social media platforms, they will have some sort of like quiet algorithm, which will say, we're going to show your post to 100 people today. So if you post 3 times or 1 time, only 100 people are going to see it. LinkedIn, we never post more than once a day. Facebook or Twitter will do 3 or 4 posts a day quite happily and still see people interacting with it, liking it and engaging it. So give it a try, see what works. But yeah, LinkedIn is a little bit different in terms of business pages. So once a day, twice a day is going to be fine. Can I have your PowerPoint presentation? No, you can't have my PowerPoint presentation, but I will put the whole I'll put the whole webinar on our YouTube channel afterwards. So if you want to see anything, again, you can look back at it that way. I think that's all the questions. So unless anybody has anything else they'd like to ask me in the last few minutes, I think I'm going to say goodbye. This is your last 20 seconds to type anything in the question and answer box. I hope this has been useful. I'm going to send around a feedback form, feedback survey to everyone. If you want us to do more webinars like this, then I'm happy to do them. I know they're very different to the pest control ones that Natalie's been doing, and a little bit more niche. But I hope you found it useful. If you are a BPCA member or work for a BPCA member company, we have a marketing team of 2 here at BPCA, so me and Kat. And between us, we're always happy to have a look at blog posts, websites, chat through ideas with you. So if you are a member, pick up the phone. Our contact details are on the website. And we love seeing what members are doing. So please feel free to do that. And again, if you are a member and you've got something that you really want to share with the pest control community, then there's always the option of doing guest blogs on the BPCA website and articles for PPC magazine. And those can link back to your website and provide really good authority for your website. So do let us know if you want to do something like that with BPCA, because we'd love to hear more members' voices across the site. I think that's it. Lots of thank yous coming up. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see lots of you soon.